Welcome back, everyone, to Ultra Wide Wednesday. Today's episode, we are taking a look at the highly critically acclaimed, player acclaimed, and just overall excited for DICE multiplayer shooter Battlefield 1. First of all, I'd like to give a little bit of an apology to my Forge Showcase subscribers. I know I've kind of been neglecting that series a little bit the past month, only having like a couple episodes every few weeks because of this series here, so I promise after this one we're going to get back into the swing of things. AAA season is starting to hit full force right now, and a lot of the games that I'm wanting to check out in 21x9 are coming out right now. So, like I said, I apologize for that, but we will certainly we'll get back to the regularly scheduled Forge stuff. But for now, we're still in the midst of AAA season, and it will end soon though. So we'll hop in today on Battlefield 1 and check it out in ultra wide. As usual with the other games we are running on this series, we are running this at 2560 by 1080p, ultra settings, resolution scaling is at 100%. A lot of the games I've been playing recently. This game, Gears of War, Vanishing of Ethan Carter, which is also another Unreal Engine 4 game, at least the Redux is, has resolution scaling, which is awesome because NVIDIA's DSR and AMD's equivalent version of that is an awesome feature that I've always liked, but having, being able to do it in engine that just scales the graphics of the game and not necessarily the UI elements or stuff in case it's, vectorized or not vectorized correctly and, it's too small on a 1080p screen because you're rendering it 4K or whatever the case may be. I think it's a really awesome thing. So shout out to DICE and the Coalition and everyone else that is doing in-game resolution scaling. Keep it up, because that means that as you get better hardware, even if you don't necessarily have the screen to support it, you can still get a nicer looking game, even if you've already hit the max resolution of your monitor. So that is very cool. I really appreciate that. Some forward thoughts about Battlefield 1. Number one, I love it. It's a gorgeous game. It plays really well. I've had a ton of fun in it. I've put so many hours into multiplayer already. To me, it's the best Battlefield game they've released since Bad Company 2. I think they managed to capture a lot of the elements of the nice elements of Bad Company 2. I certainly have my criticisms of it. It was a very consoleized game, and because of it, it hasn't aged very well for me. The movement, quite frankly, sucks. I don't like a lot of how the gunplay works, but the map design was undeniably more iconic and better playing than most of what Battlefield 3 and 4 had to offer, maybe other than some of the vanilla Battlefield 2 maps that made an appearance in them. But I am enjoying this game. I think they've captured the magic of Battlefield with a really nice setting. And even if it does feel a little bit more like World War II than 1, we're in some, we're using a lot more automatic weapons that were actually there. But I'll give them, the benefit of the doubt. It is towards the end of 1918, towards the end of the war, and it's a Battlefield game. This isn't a documentary, you know what I mean? So it's as if, war is balls to the walls at all times is how you're supposed to play a Battlefield game. But me and my friends are really enjoying it, and I'm certainly having a really great time playing on a 21x9 monitor. So that's the long story short of that. But we'll take a deeper dive into both the single player and the multiplayer and the technical aspects and how it runs on this thing. A little bit of spoiler alert. If you watch the Crysis 3 Ultra Wide Wednesday, I'm going to say quite a few of the same things, except I feel like this game's a bit better done. So just a little bit of forewarning on that. So jumping into the single player, which has a few, 5 or 6 war stories that you go through and play as different characters across different regions of the world where the war is raging on. Did not take me that long to get through it, but it was certainly enjoyable. I had fun. I think people are being a little bit too over. There's some people that are praising it way too much. Some people are being overcritical. It's enjoyable. It's a 7 out of 10 experience, but it does get you warmed up to the controls and the feeling of the game, and it's worth a playthrough. So I'll give it that. 21x9 works just fine on it. As with the rest of the game, the HUD elements are spaced correctly. They are the edge of your screen. There's no stretching with your gun models. And I think this was to be expected. I mean, if you played Battlefield 3, I don't know about Hardline. I didn't play that piece of shit. Or Battlefield, and I meant Battlefield 4 when I said Battlefield 3, if I did say that. Then you'll know the Frostbite engine works quite well with different resolution and aspect ratios of monitors. I never had a problem with Battlefield 4 either, except this game is a little bit better, like I said. The only issues with campaign are the staples. You got 16 by 9, 1080p or whatever resolution cutscenes that are pre-rendered and therefore take up just what a normal 1080p part of your screen was. And I keep seeing this more and more often. Not that aspect of it, but I keep seeing that we have these campaigns that are designed to be played at high refresh rates, and then they stick in these 30 FPS cutscenes. Hell, I've seen some games that render them at 24, like traditional movies were. And I gotta say, this isn't a bitch at DICE necessarily. This is kind of a whole game industry thing. Let's take Gears of War 4, for example, the last game we looked at. I don't really have a problem with it having 30 FPS cutscenes, because on console, on Xbox One, the primary platform, and I, as a PC gamer and as someone that's playing Gears 4 on PC, I'm going to acknowledge that Xbox One is the primary platform for Gears of War. That's, Gears has always been a mainly Xbox series, so I'm going to go ahead and give them the benefit of the doubt here that it's okay to have 16 by 9 30 FPS cutscenes, because the gameplay is 16 by 9 at 30 FPS. I don't like playing at 30 FPS, that's why I'm playing on computer, but ultimately, going back and forth between those cutscenes and gameplay isn't that dramatic. I could say the same thing about Ultimate Edition. It looked, the cutscenes look beautiful. Obviously, because they're animated and rendered perfectly, it's going to be smoother than actual 30 FPS gameplay, but it wasn't like, immersion breaking. I felt it felt really good going back and forth between that, and that's why when I played it on PC, I was like, it's a little weird going between that and 75 FPS gameplay, but I'll give it a pass because it is a console thing. So that gives it, I'll give it a pass on that. But take a look at Halo 5. Take a look at this game. We have both of these games that across all platforms, Halo 5 only being on Xbox One, of course, that the campaign is designed to be played at 60 FPS. Across all of the platforms. Xbox One and PS4 are at 60 FPS on all modes, and yet they still stick in pre-rendered cutscenes that play at 30 FPS. That, to me, the frame rate break is way more of a immersion breaker than, a few black bars every now and then, because we've been dealing with, for years, with black vertical bars on 16 by 9 images to make it a 21 by 9. I mean, that's how most movies are watched on people's TVs at home. So I've kind of gone numb to that. It didn't bother me. But going between a smooth, silky 60 plus FPS to 30 FPS video, that does fuck with me. So, and I understand why they do it in 30. It's supposed to look more like a movie, even though it's not movie frame rate. And it is harder and more taxing to render something at 60 FPS, not just because it takes that much longer to, render each frame, but because you have to be more detailed in animation. Like stuff like The Hobbit at 48 FPS did show more flaws than 24 and kind of made it look weird and added to that soap opera effect that people are talking about. But for a video game that's rendered in-engine anyway, I really wish for campaigns that were designed to be played at 60 FPS, they would just make the damn cutscenes at 60 FPS. Like, we can't be that far off technologically to be able to do that and make it look believable. Matter of fact, because of how compressed and grainy sometimes these cutscenes look, I feel like it would be better off at 60, just to give it, a little bit better realism factor. So that's my 2 cents on that end, because other than that, I really have no complaints on this game for 21 by 9, and I wish that would be an industry standard. If you design the game to be played at 60, at 30 FPS, I would, still prefer to have 60 on PC, but, if it's a 30 FPS game on console and that's all, if you only are going to do, one pass on the cutscenes, okay, it's all right, but there's so many times I've played games like Halo 3 in Master Chief Collection where everything was in-engine, and seeing those cutscenes that weren't really cutscenes, they were just part of the game at, the same frame rate that you're playing, it just makes it so much more immersive, and I think that would have done a lot of justice to a game, that's trying to immerse you, keep you immersed in this amazing, brutal, gritty, grimy atmosphere. So, that's just a pet peeve, and I hope maybe the game industry will start to tackle that on its own. But other than that, like I said, I really have no complaints with this game on 21 by 9. The HUD elements are good. Things that I thought would have been a problem, like scopes, were not at all. So now with rifle scopes, it's kind of like how Call of Duty switched to, and I think even the Medal of Honor 2010 game had the same way, where it blurs your surroundings instead of just making it black, which is kind of what it looks like when you look through a scope. I mean, I don't know if these developers have never put a rifle scope up to their eye, but as being someone that's shot a lot, that's what it's the best way to simulate it, in my opinion. It's not like everything goes black, because if you did that, you get a black eye every time you shoot, especially these gigantic rifles with humongous rounds in this game. So, but it works fine. Everything's blurred off to the edge. We have some weapons that are mounted in like vehicles like the land ship that are completely blacked out because, well, you're looking through a porthole, and that works fine as well. Even menu elements and stuff works completely fine. Like a lot of the game's minor complaints that I have with other games that are in 21 by 9 don't support the menu, and like I said, I don't care, because you don't spend most of your time in the menu anyway. But this is a nice touch because it's kind of like an infinite background. And if they can do it, I feel like anyone can do it. They take basically, it looks like they're just taking this big landscape in the background and shooting it at some super resolution at whatever the biggest aspect ratio, weirdest aspect ratio they're going to support. And then it just fits it, it just puts it over your screen and you see whatever you need to see. I don't understand why that's such a big deal. It shouldn't be. Like, of course, this Metro looking UI, clean UI, I'm sure does make it a little bit easier, because some stuff it does move dynamically, especially like when you're choosing your squad and all that sort of thing. But stuff like in the main menu is locked what looks like to where it would be in a 16 by 9 screen, but you just have a little bit more free space on the edges. But it works fine. It looks great, and I don't know why other devs are so hell bent on making a 16 by 9 menu when it's obviously not. It doesn't look as nearly as hard as they're making it. So, yeah, this is perfectly supported. And I'll say the same thing I did about past first-person shooters, Crysis 3, is that this, to me, is the ultimate way to play the game. In a first-person shooter, just that added field of view and being able to see more of your gun model when you're running, being able to see a little bit more of your surroundings, and just, I don't know, something about this aspect ratio, it just makes first-person shooters such a joy. So, yeah, any DICE game, really, I would assume it's the same thing with Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront, but that game is so lacking content that I don't care. I'm not, even as a huge Star Wars fan, I definitely wasn't going to pick that up, but I'm assuming anything that's built by them in Frostbite will be a similar story. This game is amazingly optimized. It runs extremely well on my setup. I'm pushing 90 FPS roughly, anywhere between 80 and 90 on Ultra in some of the the normal game modes. And on larger conquest stuff, we might dip 70 to 80, but playing on a 75 hertz screen, there's no tearing, there's no nothing like that, and it just plays like a fucking wet dream. So yeah, this is like one of these showcase first-person shooters to play on a 21 by 9 screen, I feel like. And if you turn off the HUD and stuff, holy shit, are you talking about an immersive, like, scary World War I experience. So, yeah, I'm going to have to give it full marks on this one. The only nitpicky thing, like I said, is not towards DICE in particular. It's towards gaming industry. Can we stop making cutscenes at different, frame rate and stuff than the campaign that you're playing? That would be nice, but yeah, other than that, it's a damn fine game. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and technically awesome, and runs very well on 21 by 9. I'm sure it'll run well on about anything you have. Battlefield 4 worked really well on Eyefinity setups, on NVIDIA Surround. You could basically throw whatever you want at it, and it'll, with a couple tweaks, it will probably run fine. Hardware-wise, like I said, Ultra settings at 2560 by 1080 with a single 980 Ti, and I actually playing only at like 1300 megahertz this time. It like I said, it runs great. 70, anywhere from 70 to 90 plus FPS, depending on what map you're on and stuff. If you have a 1440p ultra wide, the 3440s by 1440p, especially if you have it up to say like 100 hertz and you want to be able to take advantage of all that screen real estate and the frame rate. You're going to start getting into some, you know, higher tier hardware, you know, GTX 1080s or SOI 980 Ti's or 1080 or 1070s. If you're wanting ultra, you could play on a single 1070 or 980 Ti if you're willing to turn down some eye candy. But for me, it's ultra on Battlefield games. I got to get that ultra. You know, if you want to simulate it, I guess you could always play with a normal ultra wide and you know, a 1080p ultra wide and play with the custom resolution sliders and stuff and see what that'll net you if you're, you know, thinking about upgrading or whatever like that. But yeah, it's a amazing looking game. It runs amazingly well, and full props to DICE for another great PC port in a land of so many shit PC ports, especially when you know, we're working with consoles as well. I feel like they do this the right way, and I don't understand why so many developers don't. They make an amazing PC game that scales almost perfectly with current generation hardware that will, you know, still yield you really nice frame rates with an amazing looking game. Like, this game looks way better than it runs compared to other stuff out there on the market right now. And then they take that and scale it back for consoles. And what inevitably always happens is that you still end up with a beautiful console game, even if it runs, you know, like this case, it has to run dynamically both in resolution and frame rate on PlayStation 4, and I think it's the same story on Xbox One. So, but that always looks better than if you do it the other way around. If you try to max out a console and then push it to its limit and then port that to PC, and then you have a rickety port that, you know, sometimes runs at 60 FPS max, sometimes you don't even get that, and because you coded it and optimized it for one set of hardware, it never translates well, and the visuals are always going to be way shittier than they could have been. So I just got to give, you know, big hand to DICE for making good PC ports all around and making good console games. Like I said, they look way better than they run, and it's, you know, better than if they had done it the other way around. So full marks on the 21x9, full marks on the port, and having a lot of damn fun with it. If you haven't picked this game up yet, I highly recommend you do so. Titanfall 2 will have been out by the time I record this or get this video up. I've not played it yet, but so far this is looking like my shooter of the year. Titanfall 2 is going to be hard-pressed to beat it. As much as I love 1, damn, is this one just hit the sweet spot for me. So if you have any other questions, as always, leave them in the comments. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. If you have a, you know, high-end rig, I wouldn't worry about it. You can run this thing about any way you want to. If you have more of a budget tier rig, GTX, you know, 1060 or GTX 970, not that those are budget cards, I'm, you know, lighter on the budget rig, you could probably still do it. And, you know, if you're, you know, lower end cards or whatever, just looking for 1080p gaming, it's still a pleasant experience. It's just, this is, to me, like the be-all, end-all to play FPSs. So hope that was informative for some of you guys, and hope it helped, and hope you enjoy the gameplay and that sort of thing. Stay tuned on the channel for more Ultra Wide Wednesdays as games come out that interest me, and I'm sure there'll be some random Battlefield that keeps cropping up every now and then. So appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.